Alright, just a little bit past 9:02 today, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. Hopefully everyone can see my slides here in about 30 seconds. Should be less than 30 seconds, but this is a fun little picture I wanted to get started with here. But again, we wanted to thank you all for attending the Voice of the Customer Research, or VOC Research, tips and tools to listen to your customers better. Before we get started, we wanted to give you a bit of background about who Survey Analytics is. We did start back in 2002, and we are headquartered out of Seattle, Washington. We are number 172 out of 500 fastest growing private companies, and we're also number 12 on Puget Sound Journal's Top 100 in Washington. We have well over 6,000 clients, actually more than that, and we are growing. And besides Survey Analytics, we also have other tools available out there, such as Question Pro, Idea Scale, MicroPoll, and also some other mobile applications like Survey Swipe and Pocket. Here's a little picture of myself so you know who you're listening to today. Again, my name is Esther Lavielle. I am the Chief Education Director over at Survey Analytics. To the right here, you'll see some of our clients that we have, and you may know some of them. They're pretty popular, such as Career Builder, Safeway, McGraw-Hill, Microsoft, and this is just a small snapshot of our client base. And today I wanted to introduce to you Andrew Jeevens, and he is our speaker today. He's also the Executive Vice President over at Survey Analytics, and he comes to us with over 20 years in the market research industry. So quite a lot of time. He is also a frequent writer and speaker for various publications and events around the country. So if you are going to some of the conferences, make sure to look him up. He's probably going to be speaking there. So, and he's got a great background in psychology and statistics, and with Survey Analytics, a lot of his focus is on the innovation of how survey research is used. So let's go ahead and jump right into our webinar agenda. We have just basically 8 different things that we want to talk to you about. First thing is, what is Voice of the Customer Research? And we'll also look at trends in VOC research and some basic research methodology that is used with VOC. We'll also spend some time with what we like to use in Survey Analytics, which is the Net Promoter Score. And we also have an example of a Net Promoter Score question. And we'll also look at some additional tools that will help with VOC research, such as text analytics, crowdsourcing, mobile applications, and action alerts. And we'll also go over some best practices and tips to help you get started. And if we have time, we'll open up the floor to any questions from the audience. And to ask questions, you can always type them in the question or chat box, and we'll make sure to answer those accordingly if you have time. And then we'll also close with a conclusion. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the first thing on the list, which is, what is the Voice of the Customer Research? According to, Forrester Research, VOC is defined as, the wants and needs of customers expressed with the customer's own language. It is the text or speech collected from customers through information systems, and that includes emails, forums, surveys, and call center systems. It is also known quite simply as the perspective of the customer. And I just want to pose a very simple question, are you listening to your customers and effectively meeting their needs? And Voice of the Customer Research is basically that. What are you doing? Are you listening to your clients, and are you reacting to what they're saying to you? So if you wanted to, use your core customers to help drive innovation, grow market research, and retain customers, then, VOC research or voice of the customer research is for you. It is a methodology designed to support customer-driven change. So basically what you're doing is you're using what they're saying to help drive improvement strategies. There are, some three major factors that hinder VOC research, and that it is easier said than done. You know, a lot of times we also think that listening is hard work. I'm married and I have a husband who's sometimes he just likes to zone me out. So I could imagine that, even at work, that would be very difficult in terms of listening to your customers. And because there's just so much to see and hear, we find that listening is actually quite hard. And also, the third thing is you might already be doing a bit of it without knowing that you are, and you're missing out on some key opportunities. And to further explain that factor, it's basically you are doing surveys, you're also gathering some feedback and comment pages, but you're really not, listening to them, fully, because you don't have some processes in place that allow you to gather the feedback, in a timely and efficient manner. So these are just some of the things that we found that are major factors in trying to start the implementation of VOC research. So it's very important that you want to find affordable tools and also find simple methods to get started to help drive product and service improvements at your company. So the next part of VOC research, basically a lot of people want to know, what's the point of doing this? VOC research basically reveals solutions to top business challenges. And I wanted to highlight some of the top business challenges that a lot of companies do come up with, including ours here at Survey Analytics. So we want to measure customer loyalty. You want to benchmark the customer loyalty and identify critical improvement opportunities. And you can do that by running Net Promoter Score. You also want to benchmark your competitors. How are you doing against your competitors? What are the key factors that impact your customers' buying decisions? And also make sure to measure your own satisfaction and loyalty in comparison to how your competition is doing. Just because customers are satisfied with your product or service doesn't necessarily mean that they are loyal to you. So it's very important to implement a competitor benchmarking type process. So it's very important to look at that. Also, you want to gauge the strength of your company, and this is actually looking internally. So you want to, assess the existing talent by gauging the strength of your team. Talent, is quite directly linked to customer satisfaction and loyalty. A lot of times a lot of people ask, well, how is that so? It's very simple. It's like the call center thing where, if you call someone up and someone's being very rude to you, that particular person can actually ruin your entire perspective of a particular brand or service that you're calling in about. So the stronger your team is in the field, the more likely you're going to have a stronger customer relation. Some other things that a lot of people would like to do is they would like to run a win-loss analysis. Are you a winner or a loser in the industry? Find out whether or why you're winning certain competition, or why you're making sales, and also figure out why you're losing the sales. Does your company need to concentrate on growing market share or retaining customers? So those are some major questions that you would have to ask. So if you feel that your market share in your industry is quite small, then you would have an opportunity to grow your market share, and you need to concentrate on your sales and see where you're at. And if you're not making the sales, then there needs to be research to figure out, what can you do to position yourself to win those. You also want to look at brand perception and awareness and also positioning strategies. How healthy is your brand? What is the perception and awareness? And make sure to assess the strength of your brand versus others in the market. So, if you want to look at a couple examples, say for instance, like a grocery store, how does Safeway compare to a Whole Foods? What is the perception in the community to which it serves? And also, what kind of products do they have? What is the perception of of the type of people that shop at these places? So, brand perception is quite overwhelming. Branding research, it can be a whole bag of tricks on another side that you might not want to open up. So, what we have suggested and what I've seen, in my experience, is that you want to concentrate on what you want to see in the brand mirror, so to speak, and compare it to what customers see for short-term needs. And then, of course, once you have more time, you want to expand your brand research opportunities for larger projects if needed. Also, you want to look into jumping into new territories. You want to review conflicts and opportunities with new channels or areas to grow. This is a frequent area of future growth, which is often expanding into new channels. And I have an example below here, which is an H&M apparel store. If you're a girl like myself, I love H&M. The apparel store wants to build an online store, but they don't have any online presence right now. They have an online store, but they don't really have an online store actually. So what do they need to do? So it is a very daunting task, and VOC research, or voice of the customer research, will help them with reducing growing pains. So in general, these are just some of the major challenges that a lot of businesses have, and by using the VOC process, you can help reduce a lot of the stress or risk that comes along with that. Andrew, did you have any fillers or anything you'd like to add to this?
Hi everyone. Yeah, I think there's one thing I'd like to say is that when we talk about voice of the customer, of course, it can also be as Esther mentioned, the customers that you lost. It's sometimes very easy to concentrate on those customers that you have, and by definition, most of the customers that you have um, must like you. They stay as a customer. It's very often you need to seek out the people who didn't buy, or the people who aren't your customers, to kind of balance the view that you get from your current customers.
Great.
That's all I got there, Esther.
Okay, sounds good. Oops, just one second here. And I'm going to pass this over to Andrew to talk about trends.
Okay, there's been voice of the customer research is actually one of the more active areas in what we call DIY market research. And of course, with anything that's actively changing, there are trends. And a lot of organizations are abandoning the more traditional custom survey research in favor of voice of the customer. And we've identified here a few of the factors. One of the issues, of course, is cost. There are now a lot of platforms and a lot of mechanisms whereby you can administer your own voice of the customer research quite simply. In the past, that was a lot more complicated factor. The first one we'd like to talk about is strong misrepresentation and overreaching traditional customer research. A lot of traditional customer research can be very complicated. And there is, unfortunately, the tendency for a lot of that to misuse statistics and to develop models that really don't reflect the real world. And a lot of these models are simply developed just to show how clever people can appear. And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of statistics within traditional customer research that are misused and give a false impression and give a false feeling of significance of results, which really aren't reflecting what's going on in the real world. There's also been a growth of other analytic methods through Lean and Six Sigma and continuous improvement. Six Sigma is originally a very complicated and expensive way of assuring quality. It came out of the manufacturing industry, where if you make widgets or car engines or soap powder, you want to make sure that these are of a consistent and high quality. And Six Sigma was designed by a lot of engineers a long time ago to do that. And implementing Six Sigma in a company can be extremely expensive. So people have moved towards what we term Lean Six Sigma. It really is all about, as the slide mentions, continuous improvement. That is, analyzing your process and trying to work out those points in your process that need some improvement so that your final product, be it soap powder, aeroplane engines, cell phones, actually are of the quality that you want. As I said earlier, the move to voice of the customer is reflected by the fact that this can be something that can empower all the employees within an organization, not just the senior management, to try and improve the performance of the company. It isn't sort of esoteric market research about the structure of the market and very complicated models about brand perception and brand reaction. It really is something very simple. It's really simply saying, this is what the customers say. If we hear that the customers are happier or unhappier, we can act on that. And it has become very tied to the performance of the companies, to the point where senior executives and even people much lower down the chain have bonuses and payments linked to the values, the results of voice of the customer research. Next slide then.
So we just talked a little bit briefly here about the different kinds of voice of customer research methodology, and again, we just highlight a few of them that are out there. And so here we have, again, Lean Six Sigma, as Andrew had said, does come from the manufacturing industry, although there is a lot of certifications and many different companies outside of the manufacturing company implementing it within and gathering very interesting results. And basically, the gist of it is here is it's basically a type of research or project management process to reduce the errors and defects internally, but it also can involve current and potential customers. Again, like I said, it can be quite overwhelming, or you can look at it from a very simplified standpoint. And to learn more about it, I did put some references below in which you can review and see if that is a good option for you to look into. There's also other things such as corporate ethnography. And this is basically using observations and interviews to gain insights into when, where, why, and how customers are using your products. And you can do an internal or external or both ethnography. And this is just simply having a field team go out and simply gather just information from people who are using it, and also your workers who are interacting with people who are using it. What are they saying? So this will help you gather the voice of the customer a lot quicker. Continuous improvement is a process of making things easier and more efficient internally and for your customers. So one of the easy examples of doing that could be as simple as a return process of a specific product. By making that easier for customers, the easier things are, the more likely people would love to come back to you. We as humans, we're very simple people, and if we find things are easy to do, we would tend to come back to it and use it quite often. So again, like I said, there is some information about Six Sigma below for some very reputable certification and or universities in which you can look into further if you'd like some more information. And this is for Andrew.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about a particular measure of voice of the customer, customer satisfaction, called the Net Promoter Score. It's actually a very simple mechanism and process, and it's become a very popular way of measuring customer satisfaction. It wasn't invented that long ago. It was invented in 2003. A company called Bain and a company called Satmetrics and somebody else whose name I've forgotten kind of came up with this. And it's really grown very rapidly in use. And in fact, you will see in some quite large companies, as I was saying earlier, that people's bonuses are tied to this score, to this single number that the executive management have decided gives an indication of how satisfied people are. The idea is that you want to create more people that promote your company, hence the name Net Promoter Score, than are detractors, that is, people that say negative things about your company. The concept is very simple. If people are happy and they're promoting your company and saying that this is a good place to go, you're obviously doing better than if you've got people who are detractors. It's a much simpler way of measuring things than many other customer satisfaction measurements. And you'll find that when you talk to the traditional market research companies, they often aren't very positive about this score. The reason is that it's simple. It's very easy to administer. It's very easy to understand the reports. You don't have to have long, complicated questionnaires. In fact, very often you can simply ask people 2 questions. And while, yes, of course, there is debate and opinion about generally how accurate it is, for a 2-question survey, I think it's better than anything else that really is out there. My criticism, again, of the other measures is that they're very hard to implement and maintain. You don't want a long, complicated questionnaire. You want to be able to give some people, your customers, and people who don't know, who aren't your customers, something simple to fill in and that's very quick. Next slide, please, Esther. Net Promoter Score has 1 question. The original Net Promoter Score was based on a 0 to 10-point scale. There has been some more research being done about this, and I believe there's a gentleman called Krosnick, and they recommend an 11-point scale. It is one of these things, again, where opinions differ, but this is generally the idea. And I suspect in the future that there's going to have to be some changes done to this idea, because as people move to using smartphones as interviewing devices, it's kind of hard to put an 11 or a 10-point scale on a smartphone and expect to get anything meaningful. However, the original, the sort of version 1 Net Promoter Score is 10 is extremely likely and 0 is extremely unlikely. And the question is, how likely is it that you would recommend our company to a friend or colleague? Very simple question. Would you promote the usage of this company? And the core is that there are brand detractors and brand promoters. Respondents are categorized based on that score, and of course, if you've got an 11-point scale, this changes a little bit, but promoters are people that you score 9 to 10. People who are passive, meaning they're kind of in the middle, they're neither promoting, they're neither detracting from the company, are 7 to 8. And detractors, that is the people who have negative opinions about your company, are on a score 0 to 6. Next slide. So the scoring of this, you have the percentage of detractors is subtracted from the percentage of promoters to obtain a Net Promoter Score. Simple idea. Of course, given that the 2 things you're manipulating are percentages, it can range from as low as -100 to as high as +100. Sometimes you see Net Promoter Score sort of given as a percentage. It really isn't a percentage. It's a difference between 2 percentages. An NPS of over 0 is good. That means you've got more people promoting than detracting. And if you've got a value of over 50, you're doing real great. What people often do with a Net Promoter Score type study is that they follow the question by asking why this score was given. So saying, would you recommend this company to your friends and colleagues? And afterwards you say, well, why did you say that? Why did you say you would, you wouldn't? You're really interested in the promoters and the detractors. Now, this follow-up question is often, obviously, is a text question. That is, you're asking people to write down or type in, if it's on a computer, why they gave that score. And the information that those people give you in that text question can be really important. And particularly when you've got people who are giving you a 0, who are really very upset with you, you can use this immediately to try and find out what's going on and maybe try and rectify the situation. Next slide, please. As I said before, a huge advantage of NPS is that it's simple. And there is a backlash currently going on because too many of the market research methods that have been carried out over the past 20 or 30 years depend on the idea that a long, complicated questionnaire with lots of questions, lots of rating scales, lots of grids is really a good thing. And there's just no evidence that this is true. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to the contrary saying that if you ask people questionnaires that are too long, the data that you get really isn't very meaningful. People are, their minds are wandering, they're not paying attention. So you really do want to keep this simple. There are some people who argue that NPS doesn't give you anything different than other more traditional loyalty measures. But again, there's always going to be differences in opinion. Traditional market research companies don't really like NPS that much because it's not something that they can make very complicated. NPS is basically very easy to use, and there is a lot of research being done in it, and people have got a really good idea of how it works, and so it's become very popular. Next slide, please. It's probably better to do a simple measurement of anything more frequently than a more complex one less frequently. As I said, more complicated questionnaires place what people call a higher cognitive stress on people or cognitive load carrying out the questionnaire. And so a simpler measurement, something that's a couple of questions done more frequently, means you can track changes. And a lot of voice of the customer research is really about seeing how things are changing. It's probably fair to say you can't make an absolute measurement of how popular you are and how popular you are with your customers. You can establish a baseline and then over time, by doing the research repeatedly, see how campaigns or management strategies or changes in products are affecting the satisfaction of the customer via voice of the customer. You do need to have data and reports that people can understand, because the idea is that you can use this index, if you like, of how happy your customers are and spread this throughout the company so that not only the higher management but the staff on the ground, the people who actually deal with the customers day to day, can understand the output of the voice of research and act upon it and see what they're doing wrong or right. Accessible reporting is really one of the keys of successful voice of the customer research. If you can't communicate it to all of the company in an easy way, the company can't act on it. The company can't move forwards. Next slide, please, Esther. Within Survey Analytics, we have a very streamlined way of setting up the NPS template with the detractor and promoters. As you can see, the headings here below. It's very quick. It's very easy to do. Next slide, please, Esther. And this is a typical NPS question. As you can see, it's just one line. It's just one scale. The person can click, therefore, where they feel they fall on that scale, and that is, the core measurement that you carry out. Next slide, please. Then you can get your report, and based on this report, you can calculate your Net Promoter Score. This is a report actually showing the percentages within all of the scale ranges. So you can then use that to very easily calculate your Net Promoter Score. Next slide. And now over to Esther.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for that section there, Andrew. And besides, setting up your research methodology, gathering your research is now changing as well, and this is going to affect how you gather and track and listen to your customers. So we wanted to spend a bit of time showing everyone that there are new tools and capabilities that are out there. So the first one we want to talk about is text analytics tools. And basically this is just using open-ended text analysis tools to bring words to life. And what you can do with that includes, segmenting and coding your responses, which is pretty standard in the industry right now. And not only that, but you can also create tag clouds as well. And you'll be able to, with the new tools that are available, either through Survey Analytics or some other tools like Discover Text, you can compare various marketing campaigns to determine the voice of the research and that the brand is consistent and effective with the delivery of desired results. So with us, we do offer real-time results available, and from there, based off of what people are saying to you right now, you can implement immediately uh, many of the different text analytic tools that we have available. So, one side you see here is a tag cloud, and then you can see we have a chart as well as sort of a filter here showing you that you can compare what people are saying from your emails, from your email campaigns, from your online tools like Twitter or Facebook or your blog, which you can see below, and see how this matches up with what your surveys are saying. So it's very interesting work, and it is going to be one of the biggest trends, I believe, in the way research is going to be gathered in the future. The next tool we have is a crowdsourcing tool. Basically, crowdsourcing will involve your customers, and according to the MIT professor Eric von Hippel, he says this is really the biggest paradigm shift in innovation since the Industrial Revolution. If you haven't heard what crowdsourcing is, it basically is a community of people that you build and allows people to share ideas and allows people to vote on which ideas are going to that actually resonate with them or they find um, very odd or they don't like. And naturally, the ones that within the community that are most popular will bubble to the top, and then from there, you as a company can use that data to act on it. So we have a tool called Idea Scale, and that'll allow your audience to brainstorm and allow you to harvest their ideas and put it into action right away. We also have a new way that we've been seeing in the industry, which is a mobile research platform. Basically, with a lot of the mobile research platforms, you'll be able to capture the customer's voice at the most accurate point in time, anytime, anywhere. And as more and more people are picking up and using smartphones for, anything from checking emails to playing games to listening to music and also even buying things online, we find that with the mobile research platform, this is going to be the key points on how you can grab instant feedback on particular experiences right as they're happening. Some of the downfalls to traditional research is that people would send out a survey, maybe a month or two or a little bit after the experience happened, and you're asking a customer or respondent to recall what their experience was, and it might not be so accurate. And with mobile research platforms, this will allow you to capture how they feel right at that moment. So some of the things I like to say is, save trees. You can administer field surveys via iPad or smartphone device. And through Survey Analytics, we do offer a offline iPad application for your field research needs, and also Survey Swipe, which is your own online mobile community or mobile panel, and you can interact with them with a built-in incentive program. These slides, again, are going to be available online. You can go on the iTunes store and download this and check this out for yourself. Anything else you'd like to add here, Andrew?
One thing I'd like to say is that, of course, the prevalence and penetration of smartphones in particular has been quite amazing over the past couple of years. And the capabilities of these machines are a great advantage to any form of research, any form of customer contact. But it does also mean that we have to start looking at specifically how we work with that platform to make sure that we present our respondents, our customers, with questionnaires that really work quite well on a smartphone. And that is one of the big challenges at the moment of adapting traditional online questionnaire techniques to a smartphone. That's all I've got on that one.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. And also with survey analytics, we do have an opportunity for you to set up real-time action alerts. And action alerts basically allows you to respond to your respondents right away. If they answer a question in a particular way, if they're not satisfied, or if they give you a low NPS score, you can be notified either on your cell phone or in your email, and you can share this with a specific distribution list who has the task to respond to your customers. So not only are you able to grab their information, in the field, but you can also implement if there are any issues with any low scores or negative responses, an opportunity for you to go in and make changes in order to keep your customers happy. So these are just some of the things that we have. And now that you know all of this, what can you do to start voice of the customer research, or how can you improve voice of a current voice of the customer research project? We just basically put together a small list of recommendations here. So the first thing, where to begin, it always seems so overwhelming anytime you take on a research project. And these are just some, basic ideas, but the first question that you have to ask is, which product or services do you want to focus on in your company? And are you looking at the overall, or are you looking at very specific things? This is a very, very important question to ask, and you want to make sure that you spend time, speaking to, your board, also speaking to the workers that are interacting with your customers, and even talking to your customers will help you figure out what things you should focus on. And after you figure out what those things are, you want to determine what business challenges you want to create your voice of the customer project around. And once you've determined, which ones of the business challenges that we'd mentioned earlier you would like to take on board with your project, you want to ask, what questions do you want to ask regarding, those particular business questions. And again, like we said earlier, you want to talk to your customers and also your clients internally, and look at it, look at all of the workers from all levels and see what they have to say. And then, of course, review customer comments and also look at the data trends and see, do what they say match your sales, or do what they say match the way your products and how they're doing, quarterly or monthly. And of course, you have to validate all of the above by running surveys, interviews, and reviewing comments and looking at data again. And then this is a great time, in the process of where you start is you start gathering some competitive intelligence. So if you know there's some very, very big customers, such as the popular Coke versus Pepsi, I'm sure they have huge files on each other in terms of how they do certain things and what they do with their processes. And so it's important to not only know your company, but also know who is your competition in the industry. And then after that, you can choose a voice of the customer methodology that you believe is going to work for you. So these are just some ideas. We can also go with the NPS. You can also use just some standards, questionnaires or ethnographies and comments as well to get you started. And when you're ready to start listening, these are just some of the things that we'd like to recommend, whether you're new or have some experience, you want to always make sure that the tools and the voice of the customer technology um, and methodology that you select will allow you to target your core customer voice. Oftentimes, when it comes to voice of the customer research, it's very difficult to hone in on the exact people that you want to listen to that you believe is going to increase your market share. So it's very important to make sure to, review your sample, plan, where are you planning to get your sample, what size you want to look at, what are the specification or demographics, and are there any segmentation that you need to do within this particular sample and that you'd like to gather. So a good example would be, the age. So if you have customers that are under 18 versus, 19 to 25 and 26 to 41, etc., and so forth, and you want to compare how their comments and their feedback changes within those segments, then this is a great time to really look into that. Also, when you are ready to listen, you also want to set up, dashboards and sub-accounts to and set up everyone an opportunity to go in and review data as it comes in. So the more people you get involved with this, keep everyone in order, and you'll be able to manage the fluidity and consistency of the voice of the customer project. And also make sure to validate all of your surveys questions to ensure that it would meet the needs of the business challenges in question. And of course, if you have extra time and extra money, it's okay to open up the floodgate and just listen. I know it sounds kind of opposite of what we just talked about, but this is for when you have extra time and you just want to hear what people have to say, because you never know, someone might drop a diamond in there and it might change the way you do your business. Anything you'd like to add here, Andrew?
I think the main point is that it's never too early to start listening. I think that the competitive landscape means that it's almost certain that your competitors are carrying out voice of the customer. One of our salespeople found that really pretty much everybody they talk to in any sort of industry, there is some voice of the customer research going on. So if you're not doing it, I can almost guarantee that your competitors probably are. That's all I've got.
Okay, great. So I did get a couple questions from the audience here, and so I wanted to go ahead and share that with everybody. So the question I got here from Sazia is text analytic tools. How accurate is it?
I'll comment on that. Well, text analytics actually has been around quite a while, and some of the tools now are fairly reliable. Accuracy is always, talking about accuracy with any sort of customer research is always a big issue. I think that there is a fair amount of work which indicates that you can rely on the results you get, but as with any analytic technique, it really is important that you have a large enough sample size. If you're only going to look at 30 people, I wouldn't rely on the results. If you're looking at 300, you can probably have more faith in the results. One of the biggest areas of activity at the moment is something called sentiment analysis, which is where you're saying, okay, given this comment that might be on a web page or on Facebook or on Twitter or a comment that's made on an online survey, can we work out if that's a positive or negative comment about the brand? There is debate about how accurate that is. Again, it's a question of baselines. If you've established a baseline and you've done this research for a while and then you see a shift, the absolute measurements aren't important. The fact that you've got a shift is. That's my answer.
Okay, great. And it looks like I don't have other questions right now. However, if you do have any additional questions or comments, feel free to go ahead and contact either myself or Andrew. We'd be happy to do a follow up. And like I said, we are going to post the questions and also slides on our blog, and anyone who had registered will get a copy of this as well. We'll also have a recording of this, so if you'd like to listen to this and further, you're happy to do so and download it and listen and share with your team members and see if this is an interesting route to get started with or find ways to improve your current Voice of the Customer project. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and conclude our webinar for today. So Andrew, if you have any last words or anything. Oh, looks like I do have a question, possibly. Here's one. It says, from Lewis, how do you motivate respondents to respond?
You give them incentives. Now that could be some sort of reward, monetary reward. We have a model where we reward people on mobile platforms with points that they can redeem for games and applications. You could look at some sort of reward based on your product or service. You can also use the lottery method, which is where you say, if you respond, you're entered into a lottery and you get to win a new iPad 2. There are a variety of those. I think one that I remember was if I go to Panera, the sort of sandwich chain, and very often at the bottom of the till receipt, there's a little URL saying, please tell us about your experience. This is all voice of the customer. And you get a small discount off your next meal if you do that. I think you have to make sure that the motivation, particularly the voice of the customer, is something real direct to them, that they will get something for actually carrying out that survey. I'm not sure that the lottery method works very well with that.
Okay, sounds good. And I also believe that if
That's
you're
all I've
going to
got.
go into mobile research in the future, the incentives are going to have to change just a bit to motivate people, and also the size of your surveys. A lot of people are again debating whether or not large surveys are good, but we can tell you, and everyone already knows, that if you're going to do a survey on a mobile platform, it can't be very long. So I believe that you're going to see a big shift in terms of the way survey data is going to be gathered in that context in itself, and to be able to motivate people while they're getting a text message or a pulse from you asking a question after they entered a store or something. You definitely want to give them some sort of a discount or something to help to want them to answer your question really quickly before they continue on with their lives. So that's just a couple of things that I would definitely recommend to think about, depending on how you want to continue your research methodology. So it looks like we don't have any other questions. So we're going to go ahead and conclude our presentation today. And so again, I wanted to thank Andrew for being our speaker today for the Voice of the Customer research. And again, if anyone has additional questions, we are available to answer, and we'll be happy to follow up as needed. So thank you, everyone. Andrew, any last words?
No, but thanks for attending, everybody.
All right, thank you, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.